Okay, well, it's good to be here and good to be with you. And we have Roland Gianstefani with us, and we're going to have a conversation. Roland, good to meet you.
Good to meet you too.
Well, thank you for coming along to Hala Radio here. You run your mission in life really at the moment is this Making It Real campaign that you're conducting with your wife. Would that be fair to say?
Well, you could say yes. We're focusing on this ancient form called printed literature and talking to people on the streets, because we're trying to find a way to agitate people to get out of the idea that they just need to blindly follow whatever the tyrannical authorities say in the media.
Yeah. Well, we all need to get out of that state. And there are a whole range of issues we're going to talk about today, because we're going to talk about Palestine, Israel, we're going to talk about the environment, but we're going to kick off by talking about Julian Assange, because that's one of the things you feel, am I right in saying, the whole media issue is one of the things, media freedom is one of the issues that you feel passionately about.
Yes, absolutely. I think ever since we heard about what happened when he started WikiLeaks and the authorities' reaction once collateral murder video was shared with the main
over Iraq,
yes, what happened in Iraq,
yes,
it was quite shocking how they wanted to close him down, close down the institution. But it's more than that. It's about the idea of closing down the free press, and in the American Constitution the free press should be free. And they want to put this Espionage Act, this ancient 1917 ruling, which would only prosecute government officials, not the press. But they want to somehow conjure up these charges to frighten, to send us a chilling message to anybody, any citizen or any journalist that wants to hold power to account.
And yet, is there not a reason? I mean, there are those that would argue, and I can understand it, that there are some things that should remain confidential. I mean, Julian Assange was leaking reports by CIA operatives overseas, reporting back to their governments, and his WikiLeaks in some instances included actual names, and I know he tried to redact names where they would endanger the person concerned. But there were certainly exposed conversations. I know for a fact that it exposed one second track discussion between somebody representing Iran and somebody representing Israel, which was then splashed all over the pages of Haaretz, the Israeli English language paper, and put an end to that that channel. I mean, maybe so this blanket ending of confidentiality came with some costs here and there.
Well, I don't know all the details because there's hundreds of thousands of cables.
Yes.
What I do know is that reluctantly the American officials, I think in the State Department, had to admit no lives were lost, nobody was hurt, nobody died in all of these exposures, even though quite a number of people wanted to say, oh yes, American lives were in danger. This intelligence apparently only represented the lowest 1% of all of the sensitive data that Chelsea Manning revealed to WikiLeaks from what I've read. So obviously we don't know what the other 99%. It was just embarrassing material. But I think as far as I know, according to the report, nobody has died as a result of this. Obviously there's been severe embarrassment, but I think we need to look back at the collateral murder. This was something that happened. And then the authorities wanted to deny it, and then they want to say, "Oh, this is only one-off thing. This is an exception." But
let's just explain that for because I'm sure most of the listeners will know about it. But just this was a video of an American helicopter pilot, wasn't it?
That's right.
Who was gunning, or his those on board the gunship, helicopter gunship, were gunning down Iraqi civilians who were in the street.
There were two Reuters journalists amongst them as well.
Right. Yeah. And so it's a famous incident that was denied as being the responsibility of the American forces, as I remember, and then the WikiLeaks made it undeniable because you had the recordings from it, the voice recordings from inside the helicopter, and you saw the filming the killing of the Iraqis in the street. So yes, so to go on, yes. Sorry.
But that's only just one major thing that got WikiLeaks in trouble. But there are many others, because basically concentrated power, wants to keep its activities secret. It has a narrative that it spins to us, the general public, and most of us take it hook, line and sinker. But how can we talk about democracy when I think British troops are in more than 80 countries? How can we talk about democracy when the Americans have more than 1,000 military bases strewn across the globe, working their way to try and influence events, toppling democratic situations? This is not an enlightened, civilized response to information. I mean, we need people to get back to simple
So you're
roots.
arguing for open government in which there are no secrets? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think we all have locks on our doors. I mean, we all have our secrets. But I think that if you're a minister or a prime minister or whatever, we are accountable to the public. And if we're utilising resources that the general public are giving to our office or whatever, then we have to give an account. And if our law says that we are not to provide weaponry to a regime, for example, that oppresses its own people, then we simply shouldn't do that. But a lot of these rules are broken, and so where is the accountability?
So do you think, I mean, in this context, that Julian Assange is guilty of nothing and he should be released?
He hasn't been charged of anything. He hasn't broken any law. There's been an awful lot of shouting and screaming from the tabloid press and various politicians saying he's guilty, but they haven't provided any evidence that he's broken any law. He's done what any investigative journalist would do, a responsible one, when all the other mechanisms have failed in trying to resolve the matter within various organisations. And I think if we want to promote democracy, this is the way forward. It shouldn't be a frightening thing to say, look, if you are given a job, you do it properly. But if you abuse that position, then you need to either change or you need to leave. You know, a number of things have to happen, but instead, it's almost like a return to the old feudal tyrannical days when you have a lord and they simply don't want any accountability and you just have to have instant obedience.
So you believe in total freedom of expression?
Well, I believe that we need to have that. Even if we have people who disagree with us, we must allow them to express themselves, because if you suppress or censor people that you disagree with, they're only going to go underground, and in some cases they may become rather extreme. We have to find a way to resolve our differences, listen to each other. And I think in the case of this whole furor about WikiLeaks, Jeremy Hunt gave a speech about the need to protect media freedoms. Meanwhile, Julian Assange is languishing in Belmarsh prison. He hasn't been charged with anything. This is so wrong. The
Jeremy Hunt, the British Foreign Secretary, has an actual campaign about media freedom at the moment, which is interesting.
And Niels Melzer, the United Nations rapporteur against torture, was saying that Julian Assange has been subjected to extreme psychological torture, and this is just being rubbished, totally ignored. It's almost like a number of years ago when the United Nations body against arbitrary detention ruled that Julian Assange should be compensated, that the British and the Swedish governments need to compensate him and free him. He has committed no wrong, and these were leading legal experts on international law, and yet they were rubbished. Now, if this is the kind of reaction we get from government officials and various responsible people, how can we possibly respect them?
Well, it's certainly true. Roosevelt's four great freedoms I've always been banging on about were freedom of religion, freedom from fear, freedom from want, and freedom of expression. So it is a core pillar of human rights on which the UN Declaration of Human Rights was founded.
But this goes way beyond Julian Assange. This goes right against the whole journalistic concept of being a check on abuse of government and private corporations. This is an attack, and it's basically sending a very chilling message. If any of you dare to expose any of our wrongdoing, this is what's going to happen.
Wow.
So be a good stenographer, do what you're told, and everything will be all right. You'll be paid handsomely.
Okay. Well, that's powerful. We'll pause a moment. We'll come back. We're going to talk next about I think about Palestine and Israel. But great. Thank you.